Um, I'm just going to pop in just to introduce our last speaker, who is Domen Novak. Domen is Associate Professor at the University of Wyoming, and Domen is going to be talking about group interaction and hyperscanning. Okay, thank you, Domen. Over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Steve, for the introduction. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I will be presenting this topic, which is also the topic of our Frontiers research topic with guest co-editors Michal Muszynski and Katarina Chinel. So I will be presenting some of their work as well, and I apologize if I get it incorrectly. But you have all heard a lot about brain-computer interfaces and just physiological measurements so far. And a lot of that work has been for individuals. And now we try to see if we can take this further to pairs and groups. And just as an introduction to the concept of physiological synchronization, when you have two or more people interacting with each other or experiencing similar stimuli, they will actually synchronize their physiological responses to each other. Like if one of them has a higher heart rate, one of them has a lower heart rate, they're going to meet somewhere in the middle, but mainly as a function of, let's say, shared attention, collaboration quality, just how much they like each other. And then we think, oh, could we utilize this for some kind of passive BCI or similar application? Just pull physiological measurements from two or more people and use that for human-computer interaction purposes. So that's physiological synchronization. And I also have in the title the concept of hyperscanning. So hyperscanning is basically when you use BCIs on multiple people to obtain brain information from multiple people simultaneously and use it, for example, with a passive BCI to infer mental processes of multiple people simultaneously. So what is that good for, you may ask, or not, who knows? Well, just going to give you one example from my colleague, Dr. Muszynski's work. In classic affective computing, we commonly use physiological measurements to recognize the emotions that movies elicit. People watch a movie, we measure their brain waves, heart rate, skin conductance, whatever, facial expressions. We extract different features from this information, just like mean heart rate, prefrontal activity, central activity. We put that into a classification model, as the previous speakers have described, and then we say at the end, well, people thought that this movie was fun or depressing or something in between. Now, if we move on from solo to group movie watching, then we could just get physiological measurements of everyone as they watch a movie simultaneously. And we would say, if we get everybody simultaneously experiencing high engagement, they may synchronize their physiological responses at that time. You would expect, okay, the majority of them are going to show a peak in brain activity, skin conductance, whatever, when something interesting happens. And we could use that to estimate, oh, this is the most exciting part of the movie. So that's what happened in this study. Multiple spectators' physiological and behavioral data were collected simultaneously, pre-processed, and then synchronization between different spectators' physiological responses was calculated, and then they plotted synchronization values as a function of time and basically watched for increases or decreases in synchronization that might indicate, whoa, the entire group thinks that this is a highlight of the movie. Specifically, they used a combination of electrodermal activity, so skin conductance, and just acceleration associated with movement. They ran time windows, sliding time windows over the signals of all of the participants. And then on each window, they calculated metrics of synchronization between different individuals. Classic stuff, nonlinear interdependence, dynamic time warping, shape distribution distance, things like that. And to get a ground truth, they had basically researchers manually annotate each movie that participants watched and say, okay, this is a highlight, this is a highlight, this middle part is not. And they examined just how do you correlate that synchronization with the different types of highlights in different genres of movies. And they actually split it up into 5 different types of highlights, which is, whoa, cool special effects, or subtle highlights, character development, dialogue, theme development. They show that 3 of these highlights are significantly also correlated with arousal and emotional valence in the movie viewers and make up a percentage of the movie, but not too big a percentage. Otherwise, it would be kind of pointless to try to look for them. They wouldn't really be highlights. So then they said, can we use this physiological synchronization between participants in electrodermal activity to predict the highlights? And they actually did a very detailed analysis where it's like, okay, in this genre, for this type of highlight, here is the area under curve. And they found that, for instance, some types of physiological synchronization have a pretty high area under curve, but for some specific genres, and then not for others. And area under curve is like a classification accuracy or a correlation coefficient, where 0.5 is basically random and 1 is essentially perfect. So they showed, it's not perfectly indicative, but this physiological synchronization between individuals is able to detect highlight moments in the movies, although with some differences between genres where you have, 0.83, 0.97 for this type in a documentary. But also if you try to apply the same thing to a romance movie, then the entire thing drops back down to 0.6. So it's unclear what the difference is here. They also found that this is a better detection accuracy than if you try to do just individual responses. It's more reliable to get the synchronization than individual responses. So people might in the future be able to use this to detect the best parts of movies, troubleshoot them, be like, need to do some design tweaks here. Kind of a similar, but not quite, application to just demo comes out of my colleagues' Essex BCI lab, where they used it to enhance collaboration. So they had this collaborative task where humans watch videos and they try to spot targets of interest, basically wait for this thing to show up. And when it does, tag that part of the video while wearing a BCI. So people would tag it, and simultaneously, the BCI would use brainwave analysis to estimate the participants' confidence level in their decision, because not all of these decisions are super easy. It's like, is this really did I really see that? So each individual person would tag the videos independently of each other. Each individual person would get their confidence level estimated through a brain-computer interface, and then this got merged into the overall group decision, where each individual's decision was weighted by their confidence level. And they actually found that if you use machine learning to train the BCI to give you a good confidence estimator, then such brain-computer interface assisted group decisions will actually result in a lower error rate than if you just run a majority vote across all of the participants. Like if you just go, okay, 5 of the participants said yes, 3 of them said no. So yes, it is less accurate than you say, okay, these people voted yes, but their confidence level was this much. These people voted no, but the BCI says their confidence level was this much. And then confident participants might, let's say, beat out inconfident participants. So the overall error rate in the group decision making was better by applying this group BCI. And my colleague's lab has been applying this to a variety of decision-making tasks: visual matching, visual searching, target detection in video, face recognition, and have been able to show, yeah, if you merge individual decisions and weigh them using BCI-assisted confidence estimation, you will get a better estimate of the overall decision. So that's another fun example. I'll give you a quick one from my lab as well, just to give you a totally different application. We used it for competitive gaming, where we made 2 participants basically play Pong against each other while they were wired up with respiration sensors, ECG, facial electromyography, electrodermal activity, and we real-time calculated the synchronization between both participants' physiological responses, and we use that as a basis for game difficulty adaptation. We classified psychological states into different classes that basically said, okay, participants are evenly matched. This participant is kicking the other one's butt, things like that. And we adapted game difficulty accordingly by saying, for instance, if both participants are evenly matched in a game of Pong, then the ball speed goes up or down, which makes the game equally harder or easier for both participants. If one participant is just straight up beating the other one, then we would move the paddle sizes around so the person who was not doing quite as well would suddenly get a gigantic paddle to make it easier for them. And we use this on 16 open loop pairs to just train our classifiers that would say, okay, this is evenly matched, this is uneven where one of them is winning, this is unevenly matched where the other one is doing well. We found that if we do enjoyment classification using only individual physiological features, where if we pull each individual's participants' physiological data, but we don't take into account the interaction between the two, we would get about 67.4% 3-class accuracy if we took both the individual physiological responses, but we also calculated the synchronization between both participants' physiological responses. We would actually get a significantly higher accuracy in the classification. And then in the closed loop part of the experiment, we just hooked up these classifiers to an if-then decision-making rule that changed the difficulty. And we found, you can actually do this synchronization between participants in real time. They have a positive experience doing competitive gaming. And then, since Steve alluded to, is this good for anything? We said, okay, we're going to do a comparison study of whether it is actually practically beneficial to adapt difficulty in a competitive game based on physiological responses of both people and the synchronization. Is that more fun than doing it based on just the score in the game? We had planned to do that in summer of 2020. For some reason, the in-person experiments did not happen. It is unclear what issue there was there. And just as a last in-progress study that I'll toss out, we have, during COVID, somehow been doing an experiment on physiological synchronization in conversation as a function of interpersonal engagement. So we make people talk to each other and discuss topics, and we make them self-report how interesting they find this conversation on a 60-second time period. And simultaneously, we take physiological measurements because we want to see, are people going to be more in sync to each other if both of them are interested in this conversation, versus if one of them is super into it and the other one's like, And that could have certain applications in, for instance, education, where teachers could be like, oh, this student is engaged, this one is not. Mental health counseling, where the therapist could be like, oh, I see my client is not trusting me, things like that. But it is still a study that is underway, but as an idea of what else there is. So I will stop my list of examples here and just kind of to try to summarize. Physiological synchronization and hyperscanning is just a way to acquire physiological information from pairs or groups of people. And then you can use this to enhance teamwork, competition, paired and group engagement. Just either you look at how they synchronize with each other and use that as a metric of collaboration, competition quality, or you just merge them together to get group information about a situation that is more accurate, the information, than if you pulled it from just one individual participant. There's a lot of work being done. A lot of it is kind of on the group level correlation analysis topic, but people are really trying to push this into a pattern recognition, practical benefits direction. It's still an emerging topic, but that is what our Frontiers in Neuroergonomics research topic is on, that is open for submission right now. So with that, I will wrap it up and just thank again my fellow guest editors who contributed material for the presentation, and my former grad student who also helped out with this a lot. And thanks everyone for listening.